Wow, 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 Vela Bay, Vela Bay. I keep hearing this everywhere. And in fact, I also came from the show flat just last weekend, which means by the time you are seeing this video, it probably could be in the midweek of April already. And I think it's very important for us to really understand Vela Bay. What is the hype all about? Is it really worth it for us to enter or not? So some of us are actually looking for property for investment. And if we're looking for investment, the key thing we also want to take note is that being one of the highest possibly priced project in that site. If I'm going to buy in, will I be buying at a high? So we have this price matrix released, and you can see from over here that the latest indicative starting prices is from 1.2 plus million. That having said, some of my clients, which have a range of 1.2 to 1.4, started reaching out to me and telling me that maybe I should give Vela Bay a consideration since it's such a good location. When it comes to East Coast Park, nobody can resist anyways, right? Of course, the two-bedder is also starting from 1.4, and this is absolutely one of the biggest attractive point for a lot of investors because you don't really see this kind of price tag anymore in the future launches. And also their two-bedroom premium is 1.7, and three-bedder is actually only from 2.2 and 2.7 for premium and so on. Now the question is, as I'm looking at this starting price, I was asking myself the next thing is, at which point will developers start to have their loading? Later, I'm going to share with you developers' possible pricing strategy so you can take some reference to the starting from prices that you're seeing right now and where would you be potentially buying from on an average. As usual, everything that we are sharing is based on my research, and if you think that it's not clear enough or you need more clarification, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to help. As we all know by now, Vela Bay is right next to Bayshore MRT, which is the Thomson East Coast Line. As we all know, Thomson East Coast Line is one of the most powerful lines, mainly because it's the most connected one, all the way to Changi Terminal 5 and as well as all the way to Malaysia. Investors really love this line because it really gives them a lot of positioning when it comes to their exit strategy in future. Also, we need to be mindful that actually Vela Bay is the first plot, and upcoming there are another potentially 3 more plots right on the back and beside Vela Bay. Of course, we do not know whether they are confirmed going to be BTO, but what we are very sure is this plot right across is going to be BTO and residential and also for medical and so on. With this, if you actually expand a bit more, you can see all of these are already zoned for residentials. We know a big plot is going to be BTO, and that attracts future upgrader for buyers who are looking for Vela Bay. So for this plot, you can actually see that these are already zoned for upcoming BTO, and of course, these will be up and coming as well. That means that if you're buying into Vela Bay at this point, you will be thinking, next time if I'm going to stay and in future if I'm going to sell, the problem with some of the areas is that they are always too congested with a lot of condos, which result in a very hard to exit positioning because that's very hard for condo sellers to upgrade into a two-bedder. So with this upcoming BTO, it almost sets a lot of certainty that next time if I want to sell when I'm done staying here, I can expect to sell to all these upcoming upgraders. That is also something that a lot of our buyers are looking at because this is not something you can get all the time. If you go further up, you can see that there's this integrated transport hub which further enhances the connectivity and the convenience of this entire area. Now let's take a look at the most important selling points of Vela Bay. As you may know by now, it's above 70% sea view facing. It's very hard for us to be looking for a property in the whole of Singapore with sea view facing because along East Coast stretch, majority of them are actually sea view but very old development. At the end, it could even mean that after a while, you can start going through en bloc. Finally, when you settle down, they go through en bloc. It may not be beneficial for some of the own stayers too. With Vela Bay, a lot of them are actually sea view, and this is one of the main highlight when I have buyers coming to me. But the question they ask me is, does it make sense for me to buy a sea view facing? Because it could mean that developer might load a lot on this facing, and if I should buy something that is non-sea view facing. As we come along to here, you can also notice that when we mean sea view, actually it is zoned into 4 quadrants. One side is actually facing the future Bayshore development, another side is facing the sea view as mentioned. There's also this side that's facing the high-rise buildings, and at the back is facing the landed. So it could also mean that over here with the sea view and over here at the landed, likely developer might load more, which I will address that as we go along. So from here you can see that actually when we face the landed, you can notice that actually it goes really very far. because over that side are all the District 15 landed. But there's one empty plot here, if you recall earlier when I shared with you. This empty plot will eventually be a high-rise tower, and this could potentially also block off your view if you are buying a landed facing. So buyers, if you are thinking of what stack to choose when it comes to certainty in unblocked view, it is very essential that you take note that the landed facing probably could be a pocket view also when the high-rise tower starts coming in over here. And if you are like you don't really care about facing and stuff, over here will be the high-rise building, and I'm pretty certain that this stack should be one of the lowest price stack. So buying for investment, sometimes view may not be the most important element, so this could mean one of the value buys in this facing. There's a total of 515 units, and the building goes all the way up to 31st floor with 2 towers. Of course, when it comes to parking, it's 50% parking space at 258 lots because the government's direction is to promote car light city, and it has been repeatedly mentioned in almost all of his rally whenever he talk about car light city. The reason why our government is spending so much money to do MRT extensions and also MRT connectivity, because they really want to work towards it, and we know that this is what they want to achieve. Henceforth, in the future, we can expect cars to be very expensive, and also transport in MRT station, I don't think it's going to be very cheap as well. Anyways, since there's 50% of parking lots and including of 4 EV charging, I do think that it's still sufficient because not everybody is going to drive. For Vela Bay's unit mix, you can expect that there's a total of 27 units for 1 bed plus study, a good mix of 2-bedders and 3-bedders for your selection, as well as a small minority of 4-bedder and also 5-bedder and 2 penthouses. So sizes wise are actually quite decent because you have 592 for 2 bed 1 bath, 678 to 689 square feet for 2 bed 2 bath, as well as 883 square feet for 3-bedder, which is actually very decent because I just came from show flat as mentioned, and actually the room size, although 8 square meter, but you can still fit queen size bed and a side table. So these days construction are really very efficient, and the way developers do their layout, I think we take a lot of confidence in the harmonized projects moving forward. Now, what kind of developer pricing strategy are we looking at? Let's identify what is the unique selling point of Vela Bay. We know that there's above 70% sea facing, which is one of the unique selling points. And also take note that units above 11th floor will enjoy a clear sea view. Anything at the 10th floor and below likely will be a more conservative pricing. And if you recall, earlier I was saying that the 2-bedder starts from 1.4 something million. So probably from the lower level at 1.4x million starting from all the way until the 10th floor, per floor jump could be very minimum. The loading could be from level 10 to level 11, which means that maybe level 10 could be going at 1.5x million, and up to level 11 can go up to 1.6. Buyers or even investors, if you're thinking of Vela Bay, I highly encourage you to be mindful of this 10 to 11 floor sector, because I am almost very confident that there will be a big jump over there. If there isn't, then please go ahead and buy whichever floor level you like. This will allow you to really enjoy this very attractive price. Let's understand developers' possible pricing strategy that you can expect on the day of launch. First is the per floor jump, which I mentioned earlier already, which means you want to actually be looking at the difference between the low floor and the top floor, or even at the 10th to 11th floor to see whether there's a very big loading over there. And the unit type jump, I did mention that nowadays with harmonized ruling, a lot of developers are adopting an opposite approach, which means that the smaller bedroom type will have lower PSF and larger bedroom type will have higher PSF. It used to be smaller bedroom with higher PSF, larger bedroom with lower PSF. But right now in this harmonization ruling, we realize that a lot of developers are using an opposite approach. Of course, I can't tell you right now it's going to be this way. That's why on the day of ballot, you want to be looking out for this as well. Lastly will also be the view premium for sure. You know that actually it's not really 70% sea facing because there's a corner of the block that is going to be partially blocked eventually when the residential plot starts building high-rise building. So I'll touch on that in a moment. Let's take a look at the per floor jump case study. Over here, we're going to take reference to Singhai's development because the developer is Singhai, right? So for Grand Diamond, what we have noticed is that for their 2-bedder from their first floor all the way to their 18th floor, there's actually approximately 0.72% per floor jump, which is actually pretty high, if I may say. 0.5 is actually considered mid to higher already. 0.3 will be the best. That's the reason why when it comes to Zion Grand previously, my client actually bought from a top-down approach. If you're buying a two-bedder and you are looking at it, actually the lowest to highest floor is above 0.5% per floor jump, then it makes sense for you to be actually starting from the lowest possible floor with the best view. So for Grand Diamond 3-bedder, what we also observe is that for their first floor to 17th floor, there's approximately a 0.4% per floor jump, which means today if I have a buyer with a good budget, of course, if I take a look at the per floor jump over here and their range is able to go up to 3-bedder, I might actually encourage them to consider a 3-bedder instead of a 2. But we also cannot overlook the fact that their PSF is actually higher than the 2-bedder. That's why in this context, I might actually upgrade my client from a 2-bedder high floor, if that's what is left, to a lower floor 3-bedder if the price gap is not too big. The next example would be the facing jump. For facing jump in Grand Diamond alone, we notice that actually the highway facing and the landed facing does have a difference in terms of their profit. One sold at 2,538 PSF, the other one sold at 2,717 PSF. Although the PSF is actually higher when it's sold, what we observe is that the profit for 3-bedder highway facing is 4.4% versus a 2.3%. This is also something to remind us that sometimes it's easy to get into the FOMO state that we want to buy a good facing because it feels safe to do so. But when it comes with a very big price gap of 200 PSF higher, that is the time that you need to step back and also ask yourself, do you want to take the risk or not? Because it might result in lesser gains eventually. Another example would be Sora, which is also another development from Singhai. One side with a 2-bedder with HDB facing. HDB facing is sold at 2,132 PSF, and till date they have seen a gain of about 4.2%. Whereas for the 3-bedder with the Chinese garden facing, you can also observe that it's sold at 2,200 PSF, which means till date they have only seen a gain of 2.8%, although they haven't TOP. But of course we know when you buy at phase 1 and all the way until now, there should be some growth. Since there's some growth, those people who bought the 2-bedder can observe that they already seen themselves growing at about 4.2% on average, with another one at 2.8% for 3-bedder. Most of the time it should be 3-bedder having more gains than 2-bedder. So there could be this opportunity that you should see on the day of balloting itself, and if you notice that, do grab the opportunity. The third case study is the unit type. Recently, I have been always talking about this, that it's important to be mindful which type of bedder should you be buying. Should you be buying a larger bedroom type, or should you be scaling down to a 2 or even a 3? So what do I mean is that, for example, Zion Grand. Zion Grand on the day of launch, what you observe is that the 1-bedder is 3,200 per square feet. And if you go up to 2-bedder at the same floor level, 2-bedder is also selling at 3,213 per square feet. When I see this, of course, for the same floor level, definitely we would go for the 2-bedder compact because the PSF is so close. But if you jump straight to the 4-bedroom, you notice that 4-bedroom on the higher level has already been transacting at 3,003 to 3,004 per square feet. So anyone who is buying a 2-bedder almost has certainty that they have a 200 PSF safety net. And we hope that on the day of Vela Bay balloting, you can also get to see this. Otherwise, it could be the reverse. If the bigger bedroom type has lower PSF, then it makes sense for you to upsize whatever that you are buying. If we take a look at River Modern's recent launch, what you observe is that for River Modern, their 2-bedder at a 678 and 689 square feet unit versus their 3-bedder, there is almost a 2.5 to 3.2% difference in terms of their PSF. But the biggest jump is actually from 2-bedder to 4-bedder, where you observe there's a total of 4 to 4.2% difference. That means that 2-bedder is going at 3,002 to lower 3,003 versus 4-bedder going at 3,004 all the way to 3,005. So buyers who are thinking of a 3 versus a 4-bedder, in this context will make sense to go for the 3-bedder. But buyers who are thinking of, actually I'm torn, I'm not too sure which type of bedders I should buy. When I take a look at this, the 2-bedder will have so much more confidence in buying, and that's why this is a good investment. If this is what you see on the day of ballot, do go for it too. Let's take a look at what do we mean by premium facing. For seaside residents, a lot of buyers during the launch, they also took a leap of faith and decided that they want to pay a premium for the sea facing. What happened to them upon their profits is, for the 3-bedder landed facing and 3-bedder sea facing, one is actually sold at 1,543 PSF, the other one is 1,679 PSF on the day of launch. But what happened is that when it comes to resale, one only gained 60% versus the other one have gained up to 67%. Both actually sold at similar time, and one is actually sea facing. So the sea facing actually make lesser gain than the landed facing. Of course, those who are buying sea facing, the first thing that come to their mind is, since the PSF is not too far, maybe I just go for the sea. Not wrong to think so, but it seems like not everybody do like sea facing, because I also hear from my clients on the ground that, nowadays when we do our carpentry, they also observe that it gets corroded faster, which makes it a big concern because the durability of their furniture is one of the things they flagged out. In fact, when we go for some sea-facing projects along East Coast area, we also observe that that side actually gets deterioration faster than the other side, which is the quiet facing. Things like that does matter when it comes to you holding it for long-term stay. Henceforth, you do want to think carefully on this. How about the 4-bedder in seaside residences? You can see one landed facing and one sea facing. Also, the quiet facing has a profit of 72%, versus the sea facing have a profit of only 56%. This also further supports the fact that even though sea facing can be very exciting to go into, but looking at the research, it could also mean that I need not be so rigid on actually going for sea facing, because the profits show that doesn't mean I'm guaranteed of more gains. In summary, what you want to know is that there could be a chance that larger bedroom types will have higher PSF, and these people are actually driven by own stay demand. For floor level, likely from level 11 onwards, sea views will become clearer, and that's a time when the loading becomes more. Lastly, the sea-facing stacks, which is over here and over here, do take note that stack 10, 11 and 12, which is over here, there might be a good chance that this area could be blocked off by the high-rise tower. And if they are blocked off by the high-rise tower, then this will actually be pocket view of the sea-facing already. So this is what I also tell all my clients when we go down for Vela Bay. Don't see the project as it is. Do think of the future plans that could potentially affect your expectation. Now, if it's really 3,000 per square feet, is it still safe to buy? Let's take a look at what was happening during the bidding day. When Singhai was bidding for Bayshore, you want to take note that there's actually a total of 8 bidders on that day. So these 8 bidders actually include Simlian, include CDL, includes Hoi Hub and all these seasoned developers. The question is actually, why does this developer wants to come in to bid for this plot at Bayshore? Of course, these developers will definitely have done their numbers to know that there are future developments over here. There's going to be transformation, and this plot is likely going to be a sell-out plot. That's the reason why these developers are coming in to bid for this land, and there's a total of 8 bidders, which is a very good sign for us as a buyer or investor. But my only concern is that their PSF per plot ratio is going at 1,388, which means that actually their minimum selling price will have to be 2,007 PSF onwards. So with the starting from prices that they were mentioning, I think it's going at 26 to 27 PSF starting from, and it's actually as predicted. But if you want to manage your expectation, do inch up to another 200 PSF, which means that it could go up to 2,009, or I'm quite confident it will cross 3,000. We don't know about your Q number, or by the time you're watching this video, you could have also been going in for the post-launch leftover units. So does it still make sense to buy if it crossed 3,000 PSF? Let's take a look at supply versus demand over here. In Vela Bay alone, Bayshore area, we took a check to realize that the total number of 2-bedder developments over here is 21 projects. These 21 projects within 1 kilometer, if you notice, all of these are all small boutique projects, which means that all of these are actually double-digit projects, and there's only 2 or 3 projects that is slightly bigger scale, which is 242 units and 1,083 units and 121 units and so on. But the key is their age of these projects are actually relatively older. So when you know this, it means that next time I'm going to sell, these projects are not going to be my competitor because they are so much older, and in fact, they could be also waiting for en bloc itself. With this, it takes confidence that actually there's a total of only 21 projects, and the only one that could be my competitor is the one mega development, and that's called Bayshore Park. Other than that, I don't see as much of an issue when it comes to resale in future. So let's dive deeper into the 2-bedroom analysis. We're going to take reference with the ones that has recently TOP'd, and one of them is Live at MB. For Live at MB, there's a total of 298 units. Yes, you may say that actually is a slightly smaller scale than Vela Bay. But Live at MB also have similar characteristics as Vela Bay. Why? Actually, it's just here and it's so near to Katong Park MRT, and it's also a Thomson East Coast Line, which means it's only 2 stops down from Vela Bay. This was actually a very good project when it was up for sale during the launch. We have a lot of takers, a lot of interested parties because they find that this location is so good. There's actually a total of 3 MRT stations within 1 kilometer from Leaf and MB. And let's check out how they have been performing for the past 6 months. If you take a look at this 624 2-bed 1-bath unit at Leaf and MB, they have already transacted at 2,755 PSF. And by the way, Leaf and MB has just only TOP in the year 2024, which means it's only 2 years old as you are watching my video. 2 years old project is selling at 2,755 PSF. Now, what kind of floor plan are we actually expecting? If you take a look at this on the left, this is Leaf MB, and then this is actually Vela Bay's 2-bed 1-bath. For an unharmonized project, what you could expect is 624 square feet. If you unharmonize it, it will go down to 580 square feet with a PSF transacted at 2,965 at 1.72 million. The layout is as such. When you enter from the main door, the living area and the balcony is over here with a small dining and window, which is really nice. And then you have an enclosed kitchen, that's why their 2-bedders sell well, and their own bedrooms here. But here's the difference. The difference is if you take a look at their bedroom here, you notice that their common bedroom amongst each other, one can only put a single bed while the other one can put a queen-size bed and a side table. This means that in the future, if I'm going to put both units up for sale, which would happen for sure, one will be able to get at a better location, but this room is as good like a study room, versus 2 MRT stations up, I can have 2 proper bedrooms and it's even spaced. When it comes to layout, it's important because we have seen units that get stuck and not being able to move because of layout selection. Hence, if today you are a buyer, I just want to ask you, it's already transacted at 1.72 million for this kind of layout. How much will you benchmark for Vela Bay? If it's really at 3,000 per square feet for their 2-bed 1-bath, the quantum will be 1.77 million. If it's 1.77 million, which is not too far from a resale 2 years old project, and both of them are put up for sale in future, which one would you be buying? It's important to think about this because nowadays it's a mix of pre-harmonized and post-harmonized, and that's why we need to exercise extra sensitivity towards our entry price. So looking at this, normally a new launch will be going at least a 150,000 to 200,000 above a resale. But today you are able to get a unit at 3,000 PSF at 1.776 million. It means that it's very close to this, and if it's me, I will definitely go for it because I know that my layout is so much more efficient and I know that my quantum of entry is as good as a resale. So it is an opportunity that you may not want to miss if it's at 3,000 per square feet. But as the PSF goes up, which could even go up to 3,001 to 3,150, if that is the case, you are going in at 1.8 something million. That's a time where your risk level increases, and that's a time that if you are not too sure if you could go ahead with it, it's good to seek someone to advise you. And if you have an agent to advise you, that would be great. Otherwise, you can always reach out. I'll be happy to help. What about their 2-bed 2-bath? 2-bed 2-bath, let's take reference to seaside residences where they have 2-bed 2-bath. So if you take a look at this seaside at 786 square feet, if you unharmonize it, it will be 731 square feet, averaging at 2,500 per square feet, transacting already at 1.83 million. This is based on all these transactions and we average out. Let's take a look at the number of units for sale in the resale market. If we filter based on the unit size, which means that certain developments with boutique projects we filter out, we only focus on units with 300 to 600 units, you can actually observe that the younger development with a mid-sized condo, our biggest competitor is Amber Park. Now, Amber Park is a 999 years project, which is as good as a freehold, and most importantly, it's only 3-year-old. Since it's 3-year-old, a lot of buyers will also be wondering, but this is a 999, which means that it should be relatively higher than what I'm buying in, right? Because it's a freehold and we know it's expensive. And there's only 13 listings for sale at this point as you are watching my video. And let's take a look at the transaction. When I take a look at Amber Park, I observe that their 2-bed 2-bath, if I unharmonize it, is going at 630 square feet. And their PSF is transacting at 3,315 PSF. This is on the account if you do unharmonize it. But let's say some of the buyers which I actually spoke to, they think that this is actually a freehold. Let's not unharmonize it so that we can even out the pros and cons of both different types of development. You observe that their PSF is about 2,008 to 2,009 per square feet. This also means that if a buyer who doesn't know about harmonized versus unharmonized, they will be seeing this and they'll be asking themselves if I should go for Vela Bay or not. So there's two schools of thoughts. There's no right, no wrong, because one is freehold, one is leasehold. The question I want to ask you as you're watching my video is, if today you are given a choice to get a 2-bed, 2-bath plus study at 2,900 PSF at 2 million, would you think that Vela Bay you may not want to buy at the same price as a freehold? Because there could be a good chance that Vela Bay could be going up to about 2.1 million or even to about 2 million as well. If today you're a buyer and you are thinking, what point is safe enough, what point is not safe, which we call it a sweet spot, I want you to take reference to understand that Amber Park is already transacting at 2009, 2008 per square feet if you don't harmonize it. Today I'm buying a Vela Bay, which the PSF could go up to above 3,000. The quantum will be a difference of 2 million versus a freehold 2-bed plus study also 2 million. So in this way, the risk factor is in the future if you want to sell. And now these people who buy it at 3,000 to 3,001 PSF will have to sell eventually at maybe 2.4 to 2.5 million in order to see the gains. But if a leasehold is able to sell at 2.4 to 2.5 million, then wouldn't it make sense for you to consider Amber Park, because right now the freehold is going at also the same price. So when I show this to my client, they started to realize that now Vela Bay 2-bed 2-bath is seemingly looking like a bit on the higher side, because the quantum is almost as good as a freehold, and yet at the same time the age of Amber Park is only 3 years old. So what kind of buyer will be suitable for this kind of approach is if you are thinking of buying this for the long-term stay. If you are thinking that I don't want to flip the properties anymore and I want to consider holding it for at least a good 5 to 7 years, we could actually use Vela Bay and the future development around Vela Bay as a chance for Amber Park to continually going up, especially when there's no more freehold land to release in future. But if you feel that I just don't want all this hassle of managing a property and renting it out, paying property tax and stuff, and I just want to flip, then of course I'm very confident that Vela Bay is still okay to buy, because after all we are still the early mover over there in the new township. For me, I probably will consider going in for Amber Park, because this opportunity seems like Amber Park is going to go probably even higher than what I'm going to buy at. And that's the reason why sometimes I say not all new launch can make as much as a resale. And this exact sharing that I'm having with you could actually represent what I'm trying to say. So in summary, one of the things that I would want you to take note is, because of the harmonization ruling and the transaction that has already been done at Live at MB, we can take confidence that as we take these two to compare, Vela Bay will definitely be a good buy. And despite the PSF being 3,000, it still be acceptable as there are 3 more plots in due time to elevate the growth. But the downside is that because of competitor in Amber Park, which is 552 units, it's a very beautiful project and the quantum is so close to Vela Bay, I might want to take a chance to go and see Amber Park. This could be a good chance for me to enter into a freehold or 999 at the same quantum for a new launch, and I think it's a good buy. For Seaside Gap, you notice that actually is 500 per square feet difference, and this could actually pose as a risk during resale, which is something that we really need to cater for, because I won't want you to buy something and find yourself harder to offload in future. So otherwise, you may want to hold longer, because eventually all properties in Singapore will go up. And that's where you also want to embrace that, actually at most I just hold a bit longer and wait for growth to happen, even more growth to happen. And if it's okay with you, by all means, Vela Bay is for you. Now let's explore rental yield, because there are some of my buyers who are looking at investments and they ask me this question like, how much can I rent over these areas? Because it seems like there's a lot of condos here, and will it be difficult to rent? Let's take a look at Seaside, because this is the closest plot with our Vela Bay. If you see Seaside 600 to 700 square feet 2-bed 2-bath unit, you observe that their rental ranges from 4,000 all the way to 4,002. So we take an average of 4,001 as their rental, and going at about $6.30 per square feet. Then we also have Amber Park, which is further up. You observe that their transactions over here ranges from 5,000 all the way to 5,400, and that means they are averaging at about 5,002 and $8 per square feet. Given that Vela Bay is a new project and is the closest to the sea, let's take $8 PSF as the benchmark. And for Live at MB, there's only one rental listing over here, and I'm quite surprised, which means that actually the rental demand there is high but the supply is quite low. And I'm seeing that there's actually a 2-bed 2-bath in Live at MB going at about 5,003 per month. So if I average everything and I take $8 PSF upon TOP, and if I'm going in at 2,900 per square feet, you can observe that rental yield is going at 3.31% for each of these types of 2-bed 1-bath or 2-bed 2-bath. If you go down to 3,000 per square feet, you can also observe that actually their 2-bed 1-bath and 2-bed 2-bath are all going at 3 to 3.2%. Even if you go down to 3,100 PSF, you can also observe their yield is going at about 3.1%. The key thing is, if you're watching my video and going for the balloting and you're unsure how much is safe to walk away, feel free to reach out because I'll be there and I'll be happy to help. But if you want to take reference to this, you can also use this because this is also a good guide for you to notice that actually even if I buy at 3,000 per square feet, my rental yield is still at 3 to 3.2. But of course, this is a gross rental yield. I haven't offset the property tax, offset the MCST and stuff. So you might want to minus like maybe a 0.2% down, which could mean that the 2-bed 2-bath might actually pose a higher risk, even though rental is at 5,500 to 5,400. It could go at about 2.8% of rental yield. And if it's okay with you, by all means, go ahead. Otherwise, you want to be safe. 2009 PSF is actually the sweet spot when it comes to rental yield. Let's discuss 3-bedder. For 3-bedder, as usual, we're looking at Live at MB as well as Amber Park. For Live at MB, you can observe that their 3-bedders ranges from 1,000 to 1,200 square feet and going at about 2,005 to 2,006 PSF. The quantum is at 2.8 to 3.3 million. If I average out, it should be going at 2,584 PSF, averaging about 3.1 million for 1,100 square feet above. Next is also Amber Park. If you observe the units that are being transacted is at 1,100 square feet unit, which means that their PSF is going at 3,000 and above. And if you average it out, you will observe that it's 3,044 PSF, ranging about 3.37 million. This gap actually is quite healthy because one is actually a leasehold and one is actually a 999. But what I'm actually curious to see is that Amber Park actually do have 947 square feet unit, which is a 3-bed 2-bath. But the ones that are actually transacting are the 3-bed 3-bath, and this means that if today we're looking at this area, it means that buyers generally want larger floor plate. So if you are buying for own stay, perfect, start from the largest unit type for 3-bedder. But it also means that if I want to sell in future, people are looking for larger unit type, and this means that it gives you a better positioning when you sell. Let's take a look at Seaside Residence. Seaside Residence's 3-bedder has transactions from 2,200 PSF at 2.3 million all the way to 3.4 million at 2,700 PSF. This means that if you take a look at their transaction for the smallest unit type for Seaside at 1,023 square feet, their PSF is averaging at 2,003 range and the quantum is about 2.3 plus million. So if you unharmonize it, it should go down to 951 square feet, averaging at 2,400 PSF and 2.37 million. So in this context, knowing that they have already done deal in just recently in December at 2,400 plus PSF at 2.37 million, you want to ask yourself at which point will you actually walk away? Although agents will be telling you, hey, Seaside has already transacted up to 2,700 per square feet. But we don't only look at the highest transaction because we need to look at the average transaction. When I take a look at this, it also reminds me that the risk factor does increase because the gap is a bit too much. So if we simplify the whole thing over here, you can actually observe that Live at MB's average transaction is 2,500 PSF at 3.1 million, Amber Park at 3.37 million at 3,000 per square feet, and Seaside at average 2,400 PSF at 2.37. So for this one, it will be a good comparison with their compact 3-bedder at 883 square feet, which means that it should be a quantum of somewhere around 2.37. So if you see the PSF, which means that if I'm looking for 883 square feet, I will be able to buy up to probably on the lower range at 2,007 all the way to 3,000 PSF. I think this will probably be the max I'm willing to pay for the compact 3-bedder. And if I'm going for their slightly bigger 893 square feet unit, it also means that I wouldn't want to pay a very big gap with where I'm buying into because I might find myself having a hard time to offload in future. So to get the sweet spot, I would confidently say that something at 3,000 square feet and lower will be still a good gauge. To be even safer, I would think 2009 is definitely the sweet spot that I will be looking at. Now moving forward to the 3-bedroom premium. The 3-bedroom premium is going at 1,033 square feet, and if I actually unharmonize it, you notice that it's 1,105 square feet in comparison to both of this. With 1,105 square feet, what you want to know is that Amber Park is also at 1,001 square feet and this is also 1,001 square feet. So their transaction quantum has gone from 3.1 to 3.37. Therefore, if I'm buying the larger unit type over here, I will definitely try to buy a quantum that is close to what has already been done so I can feel safe buying. And I will definitely look at something at the 3,000 and lower PSF also, because it's 3.099 million, which is also about 3.1, almost the same as live at MB. But if no choice, I might go up to 3,050 or 3,001, because actually at 3 to 3.2 million, I will still say that it's still safe because Vela Bay is newer as compared to live at MB. Amber Park is after all still a freehold. So it kind of seems like the opportunity at Amber Park lies more on the two-bedder. If you are able to buy in Vela Bay at 3,000, even up to 3,001 PSF, I still think it's okay because the quantum itself is still palatable for most of the buyers to exit in future. In terms of layout comparison, this is Amber, Live MB and Vela Bay. For Amber, it's 1,109 square feet. As mentioned, it's sold at a quantum of 3.37 million. Now, the difference is actually you notice there's a storeroom. There's actually also wide frontage for their living area. There's a dining area but a big cramp over there. The key is I observed that Amber does not have window in bathrooms, even though their rooms are all good size. For Live at MB, what you observe is that it's 1,119 square feet. So if you unharmonize it, it's 1,041 square feet. What you observe is the average transaction is about 2,786 PSF if I use this size, and the quantum is about 2.9 million. There is the private lift, which is perfect and nice. There is also a home shelter at the back. It is a very nice wide frontage, which means if you exit from the private lift and you come here, you observe that this is really very nice. It's like it opens up to the sea view. And of course, the one thing that I want to highlight is that usually most of the residents in Live at MB, their dining area is at the balcony. The reason is also because this is actually wide frontage, but that also means that the dining area will be quite tight. That's why a lot of people like to do alfresco dining because of that. There is plus and minus for wide frontage. You want to make sure that this to this is at least a 6 meter, so you can have 3 meter for living and 3 meter for dining. Otherwise, if it's 4 or 5 meter, it will be very cramped because I experienced the same thing when I was staying in Clairvaux. Notice also that Live at MB has one room that is smaller, which is over here. And this could also be one of the points to deter buyers from going for it. That could also mean why they are selling at about 2.9 million. So for this Vela Bay, if you see that it's about the same square feet as the rest of them, possible quantum is going at 2.9 to 3.2 million. And if it's really 2.9 to 3 million, you will expect that you have this foyer over here for you to put your shoe cabinets. And as you enter, you have a good sized kitchen with yard, with home shelter, and also a WC. Essentially, you also observe that all their bathrooms also have window, which is one of the key factors if you are buying for own stay. And also all the bedrooms are good size. So it means that everyone is going to enjoy almost equal size of bedroom, and it's really good because when it comes to own stay, this is what we need. The only one thing that I would maybe discredit the layout is that I noticed that it's actually long foyer and also it's longish layout. This longish layout would mean that as I enter from here, I don't feel that openness. Even if I have a sea facing, I don't feel that openness. At most, I only have sea facing over here. Of course, it's different when it comes to this kind of facing. We cannot, because of that, say that, oh, cannot buy, because at the end of the day, it also goes back to the quantum of entry. But I like the fact there's actually a dining area right outside the kitchen where you actually can just have this glass window here to see everything, and then you can bring your food out as well. This is key because we really need a proper dining area. So although this layout is longish, you still have a proper dining and a proper living. You don't have to put your dining at the balcony, and I think this is quite important because not everybody likes to eat in the balcony. So in this context, from 2.9 to 3.2, my question to you is, with this already transacted pricing, is this something that you feel safe buying? To me, I will think it is because 2.9 to 3.2 still have a little bit of gap towards the 999 transaction, and I think it's okay. Anything more, I might actually think twice again. So what about the floor plan comparison for their compact 3-bedder? Let's take comparison to Seaside residents. For Seaside, there's already transaction up to 2.37 million and averaging at 2,400 per square feet. Enclosed kitchen here with window, which is really a good plus point. But for Vela Bay's compact 3, it's actually an L-shaped kitchen with no window, which means that no heavy cooking over here unless you want to enclose it by yourself. So this one versus this, of course, this will be better. And you want to be mindful of this because in the future when you resell it, this could be one of the objections your buyer might give you. As you go along in the entrance here, this actually comes in straight to the living. Some people actually prefer this because it gives them more privacy. So in this context, I actually feel that Seaside has better layout as compared to Vela Bay. Then also for dining, there's a proper dining area here, but this one looks a bit more cramped. When it comes to resale, buyers will be comparing this once again. If it's something that you are buying, I just want you to be aware that this could be your objection when you sell in future. If it sits right with you and you're okay with it, of course, by all means, go for it. But if you feel that this layout doesn't seem very efficient, maybe I do not want this layout, then the decision, I leave it entirely up to you. But what I like about this layout is they actually have a dumbbell layout, which means they don't have wastage of space at the walkway. In all layout, there are plus and minus. I do need you to think carefully about what really works for you. So in terms of quantum, at 2.37 million in Seaside, if I were to go for Vela Bay's compact 3-bedder, I would definitely try to be mindful of all this as compared to this, and I'll try to go at an almost similar price range, not too far off. That's why if I'm buying the compact 3, I might even buy up to only 2008 PSF, because I think 2.4, 2.5 is still reasonable. But if I go up to the higher 2.6, 2.7, then that's the time I feel that 400 to 500 PSF difference for a layout like that versus this, and Seaside is not too old by the way, then this might be a bit more riskier for me. So in summary, for Vela Bay, of course we know that it's a harmonized project. The layout are made to be more efficient. It's a good mix of 883 and 1033 square feet for various type of buyer profile, as well as entry quantum is well spread out. It depends on what kind of price range you are looking at buying. But the downside is that we know Amber is the biggest competitor, and Live MB being nearer to town may also be a competitor in future. And earlier I also mentioned that the Compact 3 Seaside actually also have some good points about their layout with the same facing, and that is also something you want to be mindful of. That's why your quantum cannot go in too high for the Compact 3 especially. And Live MB is conservative at 2.9 million for resale. So next time if you're going to sell both at the same price but one being closer to town, might deter buyers from going for Vela Bay. I'm not saying this will happen, but I think you want to be mindful of this potential problem. I know the video is very long already and I'm not going to cover 4-bedder. If you want to know more about 4-bedder, you can reach out, comment below, DM me, and I'll be happy to share with you my 4-bedder analysis. Once again, Vela Bay's preview is from 11 to 24th of April, balloting at 25th to 26th April. If you have not already viewed, you can scan this QR code and make arrangement with me. And if you feel that I want to see other projects, I don't want to look at Vela Bay after all this that I talk about, you can always reach out and I will be happy to help you to do a comparison on where are the good buys in the market. With that, let's end off our Vela Bay sharing today, and next round we are going to talk about how the market could be in Q2 of 2026. If this is something that excites you, do leave a comment inside and then I will ask my staff to reach out to you to invite you for the webinar. See you in my next session.